respect. Welcome back to yet another live podcast on your favorite football update channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Thursday night, 35 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. Apologies for being late. Consider it sabotage. Nothing short of that. But anyways, it's good to be back on for yet another night of to get time and talk about football and bring you the latest stuff from the world of football. Really, some really interesting things are happening or have happened in as far as the UEFA Europa League is concerned. Not to mention the UEFA Conference League. Things are happening down that side. Crystal Palace have managed to go through, against Lanaka, beating them by 2-1. Nottingham Forest beat Midtjylland by 2-1, which was 2-2 on aggregate, so they went through on penalties. So we'll be talking about that and a lot more in as far as that is concerned. Then we'll get to find out, perhaps maybe by the end of the night, we'll have known what teams have advanced to the quarterfinals of their respective competitions. But as we speak, Bologna and AS Roma, that game is 1-1, while it is still goalless between Aston Villa and Lille. FC Porto are leading VfB Stuttgart by 2-1 and leading them 3-1 on aggregate, while Real Betis are 1-0 up against Panathinaikos, so it's 1-1 on aggregate score. So that is what is happening. Tonight we'll keep tabs on the action from the UEFA Europa League as we also do the preview for the game between Manchester United and AFC Bournemouth, because that game is slated for Friday night between the Red Devils and AFC Bournemouth at the Vitality Stadium. So we'll get to talk about that. But with that said, I wish to say thank you so much to all of you that have recently subscribed to the channel. I say welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. I hope you enjoy your stay with us. Go and watch as much content of us as you can. Today, I want to extend my sincere vote of thanks for all of you that have already watched our Carabao Cup final preview that we did put out earlier on. So in the day, that one premiered today afternoon. Yes, around the afternoon hours there, between Arsenal versus Manchester City. We give our thoughts on there on what should be expected in that fixture. But then also we just earlier than that, we had put out a video very early in the morning at around, I think it was about 8:30 a.m. when that video went live, again discussing Manchester City about their exit from the UEFA Champions League and what it could mean for them in pursuit for glory for the remainder of the season, and more importantly, the implications of that could be in the pursuit of the Premier League title, where they do find themselves 9 points adrift of Arsenal with 9 points behind. Really, they have a game in hand. That game is supposed to be against Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace, having qualified for the quarterfinals of the UEFA Conference League, it remains to be seen when that game will actually be played. But I think it could be scheduled for the midweek after Manchester City play at home against Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium. That is when I do suspect, because what will happen is we're going to come back from the international break, and in the subsequent, after the weekend first will be for the FA Cup, then midweek we'll have Champions League games, then over the weekend, that's when, actually that is going to be all European action. So, but anyways, a date will be found on when that game can be scheduled. Hi, Daniel Tuton. It's been a minute. I hope you're doing okay. I haven't seen you in a bit, but I hope you're doing okay. But thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you've been all right. Did you see the Liverpool game? Yeah, very beautiful game, beautiful performance from Liverpool. Literally, that's what we've been demanding of them to show throughout the entire season, and yet they've been falling short. I do not think, I think I would put that performance even above their 5-1 victory against Eintracht Frankfurt or during the league phase of the UEFA Champions League. They had a really game that night. So that tells you how high in regard I hold that game. So what about the Newcastle game? Yeah, Also, beautiful game. I thought Newcastle competed really, really well for the first 45 minutes. In fact, they must have felt hard done by for going down 3-2 at the stroke of halftime, but that was all they are doing. Their captain, Kieran Trippier, decided to sort of impede Rafinha, and he conceded a penalty, something that he should have been able to avoid. But then in the second half, they had been encouraged so much by their first half performance that they thought they could go toe to toe with Barcelona, and decided then to play a high line. They decided to sort of disrupt the way they had started the game. Of course, forced substitutions for players like Sandro Tonali to be replaced by Joe Willock did not help them. So really, but in a way, they will be happy with their first half performance, but at the end of the day, it was an obliteration. 7-2 is not the kind of scoreline you'd want to look at on the scoreboard if you're a Newcastle fan. I know Daniel Tuton, you've mentioned that quite a couple of times. What football team did you support? To be honest, I wasn't supporting any of those teams. I was simply enjoying football the way you'd enjoy it on any other nights. Keeping up tabs on 3 games. But of course, I got to watch the Barcelona Newcastle game. And yeah, I was really, really, in the first half, I was impressed with the performance of Anthony Elanga, Dan Burn. I thought they were really, really standout performers. Sandro Tonali, Joe Linton. I was disappointed by Lamine Yamal's first half performance. Robert Lewandowski was reduced to a ghost, really, apart from that key moment that he had in the first half, for which he missed it because we had a timely intervention from Dan Burn. So really, then maybe Rafinha. Rafinha looked really, really sharp. Once again, pulling off a man of the match kind of performance with 2 goals and then 3 assists. So really, it's something. If you enjoy football, then you really, really did enjoy those games from last night. So the quarterfinals are already set. We know who will be playing who. We know who has gone through. So it's going to be Barcelona against Atletico de Madrid. It will be Real Madrid against Bayern Munich, Sporting CP against Arsenal, and then Liverpool against PSG. So with Liverpool, allow me to stay with Liverpool for a bit because it's going to be a renewal of last season's a bit of rivalry because the 2 sides met at the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League, and we know how it ended with PSG pipping Liverpool. So Liverpool have a revenge approach there or a revenge sort of battle to go into. Whether they can come out on top, that remains to be seen. But then also we saw a humiliation of our Premier League teams. We did sing praise of them, deservedly so, after the league phase, when 5 of them finished within the top 8, with only Newcastle finishing out of the top 8. And they went, of course, and obliterated Karabakh. I think, was it 9-3 on aggregate score to knock them out of the playoffs. But we saw 4 Premier League teams concede a total of 28 goals. I released the squad on 11, and in total, all the 6 Premier League teams conceded 30 goals. So really, it did not look good for the Premier League because you had Manchester City conceding 5 over 2 legs. You had Chelsea conceding 8 over 2 legs, just as much as Newcastle. You had Tottenham Hotspur concede 7 over 2 legs. It did not look good, and it brought back the debate, or it sort of watered down the debate, depending on which way you look at it, of the discussion that we've had between the Premier League and other leagues. Which one is better? But for me, that discussion is always going to be subjective. For starters, apologies, was just testing our audience because I forgot that. I got us straight into the discussion. But here's what I'll say about that debate. I'll say this without any fear of contradiction. For me, the Premier League is the best league in terms of competitiveness. And it's good financially when it comes to paying players, buying the best players or good players. But that doesn't mean necessarily that you do not have very, very good teams that are better by a mile than most Premier League teams from other leagues. In other words, what do I mean? For example, go and pull out Bayern Munich from the German Bundesliga. Go and pull out Borussia Dortmund. you'll find that those teams are better than many teams in the Premier League. In fact, for Bayern Munich, you could make the case that perhaps it could be better than even all Premier League teams as an individual team. But when you go through the scale of comparison for the rest of the German Bundesliga teams, in comparison to how they would rate with Premier League teams, you'd find that there's a bit of a drop-off, or that's where Premier League teams edge it. So as a collective, as a league, the Premier League is better. When it comes down to individual teams, you'll find so many teams from the rest of Europe, the PSGs of this world, the Barcelonas of this world, the Atletico de Madrid of this world, the Inter Milans of this world, the AC Milans, the Juventuses of this world. Of course, there are different stages within their current states. Real Madrid, all those are better teams. They are teams that could be much better than majority of the Premier League teams. So that's the honest bit. Now, for example, in the context or in this debate of which league is better, I do not think it's worth making comparison in terms of pedigree, in terms of history, in terms of resources between Newcastle and Barcelona. No, it's not. It's not worth comparing. The same way, we cannot compare Real Madrid, let's say, to a Newcastle. Now, Real Madrid versus Man City, you could say it's an even match based on current state. But when we go back to the pedigree of the UEFA Champions League or Cup Winners' Cup, again, it's the balance of scale does not meet, because Man City are here with one championship, while Real Madrid are here with 15, the most successful team. So there's that in context. The same way, we cannot compare Galatasaray to Liverpool. You know, we know that Liverpool is a much better team. So that's the bit of context that I would want to put on it. In any case, when you look at Atletico de Madrid, currently, even, I don't know if financially they're better than Tottenham, but when it comes to investing in their squad, they do it better than Tottenham. Whereas Tottenham may have gone toe-to-toe with them in the reverse fixture, it does not eliminate the fact that they obliterated them, beating them by 5-2. Okay, maybe obliteration is a too big a word to use in that particular context. But the point I'm trying to make is that when people make these comparisons of which league is the best, there are a couple of factors that you can point out that in this aspect, this league is better. Now, if there's one thing that the Premier League beats, hands down, all the rest of the leagues in Europe, is publicity. Publicity and media. And the reason that's why we get even embroiled in such debates or discussions is simply because the Premier League has propelled their brand to be that big. In other words, if you are new to the world of football and you scan around how readily it is available, the Premier League and the publicity that comes around with it, you'll find it's miles ahead of other leagues. It's not necessarily to say that when you go into the pitch, that players that play are largely technically better. I'll give you an example. When you go to the Spanish La Liga, majority of the teams play the same football. It's passing the ball. Of course, you have the likes of your Real Madrids that want to play on quick transitions and counterattacks and things like that. But majority of the teams will be, you'll hardly find a team that is going to approach its game by playing a low block in the Spanish La Liga. You're hardly going to find that. Then, the other example I would want to use is, for example, you look at a team like Nottingham Forest, who are currently are what? 17th on the Premier League log. When it comes to resources, in terms of finances, they are a much better team than Real Sociedad. But if those two met together, it's not unthinkable to think that Real Sociedad would beat Nottingham Forest. But then the other key milestone or sort of a factor that I would want to rely my debate on is go back to the winners of the Spanish La Liga in the last 25 years, and see what kind of lesson you're going to learn. Now, this is very common with major leagues in Europe, that oftentimes in every 10 years, you're going to find that team that is more dominant than the others. But for example, in the Premier League, in the last 10 years, Manchester City have been miles apart of everybody. That's why Pep Guardiola has won the Premier League 6 out of 9 times. 6 out of 9 times. And the only time he's conceded the Premier League title has been to Liverpool last season, to Liverpool in 2020, and in his debut campaign in 2017 to Chelsea. But when you go back to the Spanish La Liga, for example, if you're going to use, let's say, the last 20 years, 25 years, going back to starting from 2001, that's 2000, 2001, or 2001, you're going to find that there's only 3 teams, actually 4 teams, that have won the Spanish La Liga other than Barcelona and Real Madrid. You'll find Valencia in 2002, you'll find Valencia in 2004, then you'll find Atletico de Madrid in 2014, you'll find Atletico de Madrid, I think, in 2021. Yes, in 2021. Elsewhere, it's been either Barcelona or Real Madrid. That's just how it's been. And because that's been the trajectory, when you draw comparisons in the last 25 years, so on the Spanish La Liga, you've had 4 different champions there. When you draw comparisons to the Premier League, of course, the disparity is not that big, but it does stand to make a difference. So when you go back from 2001 to present day, you'll find Manchester United, you'll find Arsenal, you'll find Chelsea, you'll find Liverpool, you'll find Leicester City, you'll find Manchester City as teams that have won the Premier League title. That's 6. 2 more compared to the Spanish La Liga. Now, one will tell you that Leicester City was an outlier. Yes, they were an outlier, but they did it anyway. Now, in the last 25 years, give me the outlier, because Valencia won it twice between 2001 and 2004. So they do not stand to be an outlier if they did it twice in a space of 3 years, So then, for example, go to the Italian Serie A. I do not know how the statistics may look like for the last 25 years, but I can tell you for a fact, Inter Milan have won it, Napoli have won it, AC Milan have won it, Juventus have won it, have I mentioned Napoli? Inter, AC Milan, Juventus, Napoli, who else? Because those are the dominant forces of the Italian Serie A. AC Roma has always come close, but they've not won it, So then when you go to the German Bundesliga, by the way, when you go to the Bundesliga, since we are drawing comparisons, when you go to the German Bundesliga, you're going to find that 8 out of every 10 times of asking, it's Bayern Munich that is winning it. That's what you're going to find. That I'm trying to look at the figures. For example, in the last since 2001, how many different winners have they had in terms of the German Bundesliga title? In German, you'll find that there's more than just 2 or 3. There's been Bayern Munich, there's been Borussia Dortmund, this one's won it in 2002. There's been Werder Bremen, who won it in 2004, but I don't think they've ever done it again. So literally they could pass for an outlier, but nonetheless they did win it. Then you'll find VfB Stuttgart in 2007. In 2009, you'll find a Wolfsburg. Then you'll find Borussia Dortmund in 2011 and 2012. That's, by the way, the only time Bayern Munich in the last 25 years went 2 seasons without winning the title. Then you'll find Bayer Leverkusen. So you can see that in Germany, there's been 8 different winners of the Bundesliga. Does that mean that the German Bundesliga is more competitive than the Premier League? Not really, because when you consider other key parameters, so when you consider other parameters other than the different winners, that's where then the Premier League is going to get the edge. So when it comes to being the best league, it's not just about the football that is being played there. I usually say that to say they do not win the Champions League so often is not enough to drive the point home, because it's not just one factor. Like I've told you, Bayern Munich could be better than all Premier League teams. There's not a single team in the Premier League that has won the Champions League more times than Bayern Munich, because Bayern Munich have it 6 times, just as many as Liverpool. There's no single Premier League team that has won the Champions League more times than AC Milan, who have it 7 times. I do not think there are teams that can go toe-to-toe with Real Madrid, but overall, in terms of size of the club and history, Real Madrid is bigger than all Premier League teams. It's the honest bit, For example, I cannot say that Manchester City are bigger than Manchester United or better than Man United, like since inception, just because Manchester City have been better in the last 10 years or even 20 years. Because when you go back to the last 20 years, by the way, Manchester City, I think, have won the most Premier League titles. I understand, to be corrected. They've won 6 under Pep Guardiola, they won 1 under Pellegrini, and 1 under Roberto Mancini. That's 8. When it comes to Man United, they won, let's say, 2001. They did not win in 2002. That went to Arsenal. They won in 2003. Then they came 2007, 8, 9, that's 5. Then they won 2011 and 2013. That's 7. So they come second to Manchester City. Then in that space of time, Chelsea comes third, I think. They've won it 5 times. Let's see. Yes, 5 times. 3 under Jose Mourinho, and 1 under Ancelotti, and another under Antonio Conte. So they come third. Liverpool would come third, join third with Arsenal, because Arsenal have won it twice, in 2002 and in 2004, which was the last time they won it. Liverpool 2020 and 2025. So you can see. Then you add in your Leicester City that have won it once in that space of time, So that's the chronology of events. So you have that. So then when you go in the French League One, you'll find that in recent times, it's been PSG that have been the dominant side. But even during that period, you've had Lille come and win it under, I think, Christopher Galtier. You've seen Montpellier, I think, winning it in 2013. I think you need to go back to that period of time. So between in 2001, it was Nantes that won it. Then from 2002 to 2007, actually to 2008, for 7 consecutive times, it was Olympique Lyon. Okay, I do have a message, says, DP, hi, how are you? Good to have you back. So when you go to the French League One, like I say, Lyon won it 7 consecutive years between 2002 and 2008. Ever since then, they've not won it again, So, but not in 2001, Lyon, Bordeaux, Marseille in 2010, Lille in 2011, and they won it again in 2021 under Christopher Galtier. But And then Montpellier in 2012. You remember, for those of you that remember, that team that had Olivier Giroud before he joined Arsenal. Now, but it does not take away the fact that PSG have been quite a dominant side. Of course, even Monaco, 2016, 2017, that Monaco of Timeo Bakayoko, Kylian Mbappe, Bernardo Silva, Fabinho, Benjamin Mendy, that kind of team. I think, were they the ones under the charges of Leandro Jardim? Most probably around that time. But it does not take away the fact that PSG have been the dominant side. For example, they've won it on 4 consecutive times recently. But prior to that, they had also won it 4 consecutive times between 2013 and 2016. And then Monaco came in between. And then they went on to win it 3 consecutive times. In other words, they've won it a combined total of 11 times in the last 13 years. It's only Lille in 2021 and Monaco in 2017 that have come in between them. So again, you can see the dominancy there. But it is true that there have been multiple winners in PSG, in Lille, in Montpellier, in Monaco, in Bordeaux, in Marseille, and Lyon, plus notes. So that's 8 different winners, as many as we've had in the German Bundesliga. But then when we go back to other parameters, in terms of comparisons, that's where you see the difference, DP says, nice to see you after so long. SD, here, by the way, yeah, completely. I do remember. Thank you so much, SD. I hope you're doing okay. I was wondering, usually, I don't know, sometimes I think I've been lucky that I've been kept company by new faces constantly, but I never forget those that come and disappear for some time. Like I've constantly said, majority of my people, when they disappear, it's either school or work, one of those 2 things, or, other issues. But so the discussion about what is the best league will always rage on. But just because Barcelona obliterated Newcastle, just because Real Madrid got the better of Man City, just because Atletico de Madrid beat Tottenham Hotspur and PSG got the better of Chelsea, I do not want necessarily to then say, oh, then suddenly La Liga is better, or French League One is better. No. I do not want to go to that simplistic sort of conclusion just based on those results. Like I've told you, when you go back, for example, to again, when you look at the UEFA Champions League, for example, oftentimes they use these continental competitions, the UEFA Europa League, the UEFA Champions League, but more importantly, the UEFA Champions League. Let's go back to the UEFA Champions League in the last 20 years. That is starting from 2005, and find how many La Liga teams have won it. How many different La Liga teams have won the UEFA Champions League in the last 20 years, starting from 2005? You'll find in 2005 it's Liverpool. But from the Spanish La Liga, you'll find only 2 teams. It's Barcelona in 2006, Barcelona in 2009, Barcelona in 2011, Barcelona in 2015. And that's the last time they won it. Now, in that space of time, you have, so in other words, Barcelona have won it on 4 different occasions, right? 4 different occasions, Then look at Real Madrid. Ever since they won the La Decima in 2014, which was their 10th, they've gone on to win 5 other titles. So they've won it 6 times. So 2014, 2016, 17, 18, 2022, 2024, 6 times. In other words, Barcelona and Real Madrid have won it a combined 10 times. No other team from La Liga has won it. So that's why I say, when you simply say that just because this one has won the UEFA Champions League, does not give you the right conclusion. Then, how many Premier League teams, different Premier League teams have won it during that time? Liverpool won it in 2005. They lost in 2007, and so did Arsenal, losing in 2006. By the way, for 3 consecutive years, actually, I think for about 5 consecutive years, you had an English team in the final. Because in 2005, Liverpool was there. 2006, Arsenal were in the final. 2007, Liverpool were in the final. 2008, it was an all-English final between Man United and Chelsea. 2009, Man United were in the final. Then they you skip 2010, 20. In 2010, you had Inter Milan and Bayern Munich. Then they returned in 2011 with Man United. Then in 2012 with Chelsea. In 2013, it was an all-German final, Dortmund and Bayern Munich. 2014, you had an all-Spanish final in Atletico de Madrid and Real Madrid, just as much as you did in 2016. But in 2015, you had La Liga versus Italian football between Juventus and Barcelona. So, but to get back to the count, you'll find that you have more than 2 teams from the Premier League that have won the UEFA Champions League. So that's a bit of the other context. You have Liverpool in 2005. You have Man United in 2008. You have Chelsea in 2012. You have Liverpool in 2019. You have Chelsea in 2021. You have Man City in 2023. So that's 6 different teams from the Premier League that have won the UEFA Champions League. So that's why I say collectively, as a league, it's more competitive. But when you boil it down to individual clubs, it does not negate the fact that respective leagues from around Europe have teams that are far outstanding than majority of other teams. I have a sense of belief, and this is my personal conviction, that Real Madrid is the biggest club in global football. Now, whoever you put second to them will be subjective, but in terms of brand, in terms of being globally known, you'll put Manchester United, and they are a very rich club, by the way, with a lot of history. Now, but in that bracket, when you talk about the biggest clubs, and you're not talking about their current state, in that bracket or in that basket, you're going to have Real Madrid, you'll have Man United, you'll have Liverpool, you have Barcelona, in no particular order, by the way. You'll have Bayern Munich, you'll have Inter Milan. I'll put Inter Milan there. Maybe I'll put a club like Juventus in that bracket. I think I've mentioned Liverpool. So in that sort of category A, in terms of history, in terms of what they've won, but also historically, both domestically and at the continental level. Now, I'll put Arsenal in bracket B. I'll put Arsenal bracket B because I find them, even though they've not yet broken the jinx of winning the UEFA Champions League, I still put them in the same basket with Chelsea, with Paris Saint-Germain, with the likes of Borussia Dortmund, who won it, I think, in 97, with the likes of maybe even Olympique Marseille, Olympique Lyon, that sort of, bracket in terms of size of clubs. That's what I'm talking about, So, and then you also have another class in there. Now, for example, Valencia is a very big club, but it's fallen off, in recent times. Sevilla is a good and big club, but it's fallen off in recent times. That's just the honest bit. Meanwhile, the Aston Villa game went into halftime goalless. We are second half bound as we speak. I don't know. I'm struggling with something here. But anyways, so we'll leave that discussion at that. But for me, the debate, when you simply look at what happened at the round of 16 in the UEFA Champions League and simplistically say, you see what Spanish La Liga teams did to Premier League teams, you see what PSG did to Chelsea, and then you bring it down with that simplicity. On any day, go back to Prime Barcelona. They were better than any team in the world. In that moment, they were the best team in the world. Does that make them the ultimate biggest club in the history of football? No, it doesn't. So, in the same way, or in the same spirit, is how I would levy my argument. You're welcome to agree or disagree. It's just opinion, So anyways, allow us move on. But briefly, here are the updates coming through from the UEFA Europa League. Bologna are leading AC Roma by 2-1. Lille against Aston Villa is still goalless. Those games are into the second half. FC Porto are still leading by 0-0 against VfB Stuttgart, while Real Betis have the second against Panathinaikos. In the Conference League, Rayo Vallecano and Samsaspor is still goalless. Lech Poznan are 2-0 up against Shakhtar Donetsk. That is 3-3 on aggregate score. While Sparta Praha are 1-0 behind against LZ Alkmaar. That puts them 3-1 behind on aggregate score. Oh, Jesus Christ. How did I forget? Strasbourg 1-0 behind against Rijeka. Jesus Christ. My phone is asking for updates. At this time, now is not the time. Anyways, so what I wanted to say or to add is that that's what is happening in the games for the Conference League. Like I told you, I think I was hoping maybe by the end of this broadcast, we'll have found out who the respective teams that will have qualified for the quarterfinals of the UEFA Europa League. But you'll allow me move on to our preview for the game between Manchester United and FC Bournemouth as we follow the updates from that game between Aston Villa and Lille. It's the only game I'm watching tonight from the UEFA Europa League. I missed the early kickoffs for Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace. I would have loved to watch a couple of those. Usually, I want to pick interest in the Europa League in terms of being actively and not passively watching games at the quarterfinals, semi-finals. That's usually when things get serious. Last season we were watching it all because Tottenham Hotspurs were in there, Manchester United were in there, so wherever Manchester United play, we have to follow it. It's the reason we're trying to watch the UEFA Conference League because Chelsea were in it last season. And I think, by the way, if anything, it does work for UEFA every time they have one of those European gigantic clubs playing in these, for example, in the UEFA Conference League and the UEFA Europa League. Because last season, I'd want to believe that there were millions of eyes on the UEFA Europa League just because Man United were in it. And that tells you the size of club or how big it is, Man United being in the competition. So it's something that we cannot sort of downplay or undermine, as something like that. Then also, when you go to the UEFA Conference League, Chelsea were there. Chelsea is the only team that has won all UEFA competitions. The Champions League, the Europa League, UEFA Champions League and Europa League on 2 different occasions for both competitions. And then they've won the Conference League. And by extension, the inaugural FIFA Club World Cup. And now, so there's that, there's that bit of context to that conversation. So whenever I look at, that's a beautiful free kick. Every time I look at the Premier League table, I'm thinking to myself, maybe one of these teams, either a Liverpool, a Chelsea, needs to go and play in the Conference League. Oh, what a beautiful goal. John McGinn, on his return, he has scored, and it's 1-0 to Aston Villa. They go into wild celebrations. That puts them 2-0 up on aggregate in that fixture, by the way. Beautiful, beautiful goal. Wow. Emi Martinez just served a free kick or an attempt on his goal on the other side. Then plays restarted and they score through the captain, John McGinn. I said this before, that in all the wobble they've had, particularly in the Premier League, they've really, really missed his services. John McGinn, of course, the assist has been from the pre-assist has been from the goalkeeper in Emi Martinez. I think he played it in the channel for, is that Alejandro Garnacho? I'm not particularly sure. No, it was actually Morgan Rogers who provided the assist. So I've already said that in all their Premier League Guapo, they've missed the services of Boubacar Kamara in that midfield. They've missed the services of John McGinn and Yuri Tillemans. those three, that trio, are very, very critical to everything that Unai Emery does with that Aston Villa team. So yeah. Anyways, Tammy Abraham has been withdrawn for Ollie Watkins. But should this broadcast end before these games come and end, do not worry. We can still bring you the updates in tomorrow morning's broadcast. We will be here tomorrow morning. But with that said, it's already a quarter past midnight. I want to say Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim friends. I don't know if we should say thank you for concluding Ramadan but enjoy your Eid tomorrow. Have a blast. Anyways, I'm moving on quickly. Like I said, we're going to look at the Manchester United game against FC Bournemouth. A very important fixture for both sides, but very, very of the utmost importance for Manchester United in their pursuit or in their ambitions of finishing within the top four. They already have a bit of a strong hand. They have a strong hand on at least the third position because they are now 3 points ahead of a fourth place team in Aston Villa, for whom were blessed by Chelsea's defeat against Newcastle that they managed to remain fourth, while Liverpool drew against Tottenham Hotspur, so they could not challenge them for the same position. And they come into this game against a team that has drawn the most number of games thus far this season, because Bournemouth have drawn as many as 14 games. I was looking at their home record, and Bournemouth have played 15 games at home. They've won 6, they've drawn 7, and have only lost 2 at home. I can't seem to remember who the other loss was against, but one of those losses was a 3-2 defeat against Arsenal there at the Vitality Stadium. So it's a very, very important fixture for Bournemouth. Not that they have much to fight for, because they largely have reputation to play for, but they do have very, very tough fixtures. Fortunately for them, they're going to go into the international break, because otherwise, after Man United, they have to play Arsenal. But pretty much like Man United, they'll have almost 3 weeks without kicking a ball until they meet Arsenal. And that will be on the 11th of April. Then after that, they will play Newcastle. Then they will play Leeds United and Crystal Palace. That's for their next 4 games after playing Manchester United. On the other side, Man United, I can't say they have a softer fixture, but they do have winnable fixtures based on their own pedigree. Because after playing Bournemouth, when they return on the 13th of April, they will play Leeds United, after which they will play Chelsea, after which they will play Brentford at home, then they'll play Liverpool. So that's Man United's next 4 games after playing FC Bournemouth. But particularly for Man United, it's going to be like a mini preseason for them, because, I mean, that's what? How many days? Tomorrow being 20th, which is when they play. March has 31 days, right? So that's 11 days. Okay, 10 days. No, actually 11 days. Plus another, 12 days. That's 23 days, which is 3 weeks and 2 days until their next game after playing FC Bournemouth. Jesus Christ. I know the case is not any different for Leeds United, but at least Leeds will have a day shorter, but not that it matters that much. But wow. I don't know how Manchester United fans feel about that. Do they feel blessed? Do they feel bad? Do they feel bored? I know for a fact that Mark Goldbridge does not like it or does not appreciate it that much for what it is. And I remember he was making his views known for that, and he tried to blame it on the fixture schedulers. And I'm thinking to myself, Mark Goldbridge, none of the fixture schedulers had anticipated that Man United would have been out of the cup competitions, the 2 domestic cup competitions, quite very early on in the season, or at the first time of asking. Meanwhile, Aston Villa, here they come again. Ollie Watkins. Ah, uh-oh. Oh, he tried to play the cut back, but couldn't find a teammate. It remains 1-0. Anyway, so for me, I cannot blame it on the fixture schedulers. What if, because for example, if Man United were still in the FA Cup, they would have played the quarterfinals of the first weekend from the international break. So they would have a game to play. If they had been still in the EFL Cup, they would have a game to play this weekend, maybe. But it is what it is. Anyways, the first leg between the two sides ended. Olivier Giroud had scored to restore parity for Lille, but his goal has been ruled out. He was in an offside position. Yeah, he had veered offside. But he had beautifully taken it. It was going to be a beautiful strike. So, anyways, it remains 1-0 for Aston Villa. Like I was saying, that first leg between AFC Bournemouth and Manchester United ended in a 4-4 draw. For those of you that remember, I think Junior Kropi was the goal scorer for Bournemouth's last goal in that fixture to cancel out a goal from Matas Cunha. And then we all remember Diallo scoring for Man United, Casemiro at the stroke of halftime, Bruno Fernandes with a direct free kick. Beautiful game of football it was. And then, okay, they survived. Then on the other side of AFC Bournemouth, they had Anton Semenyo, they had Evan Nelson, they have Marcus Stevenia and Kropi, who scored for them. Now, of course, something has changed. Anton Semenyo has since left for Manchester City. That's where he's plying his trade from these days. So he has been a huge miss in terms of goal contributions for this FC Bournemouth side. In fact, when you look at their recent form, you'll find that they've won one game in the last 5, they've drawn the other 4, and 3 of them have been goalless draws. So that tells you of how goals have dried up. Draws came against West Ham, Brentford, and Burnley in their very last encounter. Those are the goalless draws, while the 1-1 draw was against Sunderland. And then, Ollie Watkins, so close to making it 2-0. It's going to be a beautiful strike. He managed to keep himself on side. He takes a quick turn. Ball took a bit of a slight deflection, which kept it outside of the upright. So, anyways, so Man United on the other side have had form to their side. They've only lost 1 in their last 5, which is Carrick's only defeat away to Newcastle St. James's Park. That was on match day 29 when they lost by 2-1, but they did recover well when they thumped Aston Villa last weekend by 3-1. So we're talking about a manager, Michael Carrick, that has managed to guide them to 7 victories. In the 9 games that he's managed, he's had 1 draw against West Ham and 1 defeat. So that's a very decent report card. I think you can, for as long as Man United do not have injuries, you can be woken up out of your sleep and read out the Manchester United starting 11. You'll know that Sonny Lomans is in goal. You'll know that Harry Maguire will play alongside Lenny Yoro because Lisandro Martinez has been out through injury. You know that Luke Shaw will be at right back. You'll know that Diego Dalot will be at right back, and if not him, it is Nusa Mazoroi. You know that in the midfield, it's Casemiro and Kobe Mainu. You know that ahead of that double pivot, you have Bruno Fernandes. Then you have Matas Cunha, Amadou Diallo, and Brian Mbeumo centrally. Or if it is Mbeumo to the side, and then you have Sesko leading the line. Wow. Aston Villa have just hit the upright through Jordan Sancho. Wow. What a goal that was going to be. Hit on the outside of the upright before going out. So really, it is it's going to be a highly contested fixture. First of all, it's a Friday night football game at 11 p.m. So we'll be here tomorrow night, possibly for the watch along of that particular game. Oh, no, we won't be here for the watch along of that particular game unless something changes in that schedule, because I'm thinking to myself, because on Fridays, as you all know, our routine is that we come earlier than 11 p.m. We come at 9 p.m. to do our preview for the weekend. We do that for strictly about 1 hour. And it's going to be a blockbuster weekend, by the way. In the Spanish La Liga, we have the Madrid derby between Atletico de Madrid and Real Madrid. Real Madrid will be at home. So it's a very, very big game coming through on that side. Then Barcelona will be at home against Rayo Vallecano. I think Vallecano is one of the teams that have beaten up against Barcelona this season. So really, this that. Actually, it was Jordan Sancho who provided the assist for the captain, John McGinn. It wasn't Morgan Rogers. Sorry about the mistaken identity earlier on that I relayed to you. So back to the Man United game. Man United have not beaten up against Bournemouth in the last 5 meetings. They've not beaten up against them in the last 5 meetings. There've been 3 draws, and by the way, goal-scoring draws, one being a 2-all draw, the other being a 1-all draw, and another a 4-all draw. Then there's not a game between these two sides that has ended goalless. The other 2 different occasions, Bournemouth went away to Old Trafford and beat up against Manchester United by 3-0. One of that Manchester United side was actually 2 of those Manchester United sides were under Erik ten Hag. So let me see. Yes, under Erik ten Hag, I want to believe. So that's the kind of record that they do have on this side. Of course, there's not been many fixtures played between the two sides. It's only been 17. United have won 9 times, Bournemouth 4, and 4 draws. So you can see that United often win that fixture. But for me, with AFC Bournemouth's home record, I won't be too surprised if this one ends in a draw, even though I'll tilt it towards Manchester United. But they will have to bring a better performance than they brought when they were playing, when they were winning against Fulham 3-2, than when they were beating Everton 1-0, or when they drew against West Ham 1-1, or when they were losing to Newcastle. So it will have to be a little bit of a different energy for them if they are to get the better of AFC Bournemouth. That's what it will take. But then also, Andoni Iraola, by the way, he's one of the managers, perhaps passively or low-key, auditioning for this Manchester United job. He's not been spoken about as the leading or key contenders for the job, but we know that there is a possibility that he leaves AFC Bournemouth at the end of the season. And we know that Manchester United have an interim manager in Michael Carrick. I've had voices of Manchester United legends, particularly from that class of 92, who are of the view that he should not be given the job permanently. Now, for me, about that, I think I want to think that whatever they do with the appointment of their new manager, it will depend on what their aspirations are as a club. In those aspirations, we know for a fact that when Ruben Amorim was appointed, with the incoming of Sir Jim Ratcliffe, their mission is or was to win the Premier League title in the 2027-2028 Premier League season. If that is still the case, then they're going to need to look for a manager with loads of experience, a proven winner, and then build for one season and build while competing, and then perhaps go for it the subsequent season. But if they want to do a project that goes on to dominate football for the next couple of years, not just domestically, but perhaps even in Europe, I think they'll need to give themselves a little bit of more time. It does not mean to say that they cannot afford to be ambitious during that time or have expectations of winning something. It does not take away that right or responsibility on the manager. It just means that it cannot be expected too quickly. I'll say this, and a lot of times people get bored when I use the Arsenal example because Arsenal have not won anything in their project with Mikel Arteta beyond that FA Cup that he won in his first half season. But I'll use the project of Manchester City. When the Qataris bite, I think this is back in what, 2000, around 2009, thereabout. Look at how long it took them to win their first Premier League title in 2012. About 4 years. So, because they buy the club around 2008 there, 2008, 2009, under Mark Hughes. So, it takes them about 4 years to win the Premier League title under Roberto Mancini. After building that project, they only missed the Premier League title once in 2013 and won it again in 2014. Then, they missed it for the next 3 years, which was 2015, 2016, and 2017, for which their project was under rebuild in some form or shape. Of course, for the other 2 years being Manuel Pellegrini, and then in 2016 being Pep Guardiola. Debut campaign, so you can't blame him that much. But then, in 2018 they won it, 2019 they won it, missed it in 2020, and went on to win it for 4 consecutive years. So, if you're going to build a project that goes on to dominate for quite some time, look at Liverpool. How long it took Jurgen Klopp to build his team that went on to win the UEFA Champions League title in 2019 and the Premier League title in 2020. It's that sort of extension of the same project, although under a bit of transition, that won it last year. Now, it did not win as much per se, you would argue, but it's because Manchester City were too good. Because in 2019, they finished second on the Premier League table with a whopping 97 points, 1 point behind Manchester City. In any other season, 97 points winning a Premier League title. Go to 2022, they finished second with 92 points. Man City won the title with 93 points. So those are points that would win you a Premier League title. They're just not lucky. For me, it boiled down to having no bad luck. It's as simple as that. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that if Man United want to win major things and dominate football for a bit of time, they may need to have to go for a project kind of model. And the project kind of model takes time. It may require them to look at a more tactically astute manager, as opposed to, the lucky gentleman and things of that kind, So, and then they'll have to commit resources to this thing, So there's that, So the question for me, again, will continue to be, and for those of you that want a wider debate about that, please make reference to the video that we did on the channel about what type of manager do Manchester United want. That's the question we do pose. And we labor to answer that question by making submissions in that realm. So your views and thoughts on that. But for me, just to wrap up, just to retreat back to the game, is that Andoni Raiola is slowly auditioning for that same job. He knows it is there for the taking. If he wants it, he can try and apply for it. I don't know if he will. He's not been mentioned near the key contenders, but when Roy Keane was making his submission with Sky Sport over the weekend, he's one of the managers he cited as managers he looks at as better or being better than Michael Carrick, So there's that. So that's what makes this game so important. Of course, there will be key paddles. Scott Adam, you look at players like Marcus Tavernier, on a good day, can be very, very decent players. That's on the side of AFC Bournemouth. You look at players like Evan Nilsson. Then there's this young kid, the Brazilian, that has been summoned to the Brazilian national team, Ryan. He's been quite an instant hit with Bournemouth. Ryan Christie in that midfield. So Marco Senesi, Adrian Trafford. So yeah, Alexander Petrovic in goal hasn't been bad. So really, it's going to be quite the game. We should expect a very entertaining game. We should expect a game that, in fact, George Petrovic has 9 clean sheets. He's the fifth best goalkeeper in the Premier League at level with Robert Sanchez. They all have 9 clean sheets. Ahead of them is Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, and Gianluigi Donnarumma, with David Raya leading the pack with 15 clean sheets thus far this season. So I think between you and I, we should wait for a very what promises to be a very entertaining game between those two sides. Although I'm led to believe that Man United will come out on top. Sorry, I'm led to believe it will end in a draw, maybe a 1-1 draw or a 2-1 draw. But if you had to press me, I think Man United could edge it. They sort of have that self-confidence about them in their abilities and the pursuit of their current objectives are finishing in the top 4. Lille are really pressing hard. That's a decent hit. That's ambiguous. Okay, he escaped out nonetheless. So the Vitality Stadium has not been an easy place to go to for most teams that have gone there. But yeah, Bournemouth are that kind of team. They know if they can try and win this game, it would propel them maybe to 8th place, because Everton will be waiting to play Chelsea in the same weekend. I will get to that those fixtures possibly tomorrow, because we have let's see, tomorrow morning. That's when we'll do them, because we'll have to do most of those fixtures tomorrow morning, because Friday night, even Friday night, we have some time. So it will depend anyways. But yeah, the other fixtures in as far as match day 31 is concerned, please do not wait to watch Manchester City Crystal Palace. That game won't be played. Man City are going to be in the Carabao Cup final against Arsenal. So guys, go to the channel, those of you that are interested in our views on the Carabao Cup final, and watch that preview. Thank you. Then Liverpool in the early kickoff on Saturday will be up against Brighton, or away to Brighton at the Amex Stadium. Fulham at home against Burnley at 6 p.m, while Chelsea at 8:30 p.m. will be against Everton. Leeds United will take on Brentford at 11 p.m. Then on Super Sunday, Newcastle at 3 p.m. will play in the Trainware Derby against Sunderland. That game that Sunderland won by 1-0 in the first leg. Then Aston Villa at 5:15 p.m. will be up against West Ham United, just as much as Tottenham Hotspur against Nottingham Forest. So as you notice, there's no late kickoff in the Premier League, because there is the Carabao Cup final at Wembley that kicks off at 7:30 p.m. East African time on Super Sunday. And then after that, we'll be off to the international break. Yep. So guys, these games, I think they're about what? About 10, 11 minutes are still left to play. We've clocked the 80th minute mark for some of them. Meanwhile, Bologna and AC Roma is 3-2. Must be a very entertaining game. FC Porto got the second against VfB Stuttgart. Real Betis are leading 4-0 against Panathinaikos. Samsunspor are leading against Vallecano by 1-0. Shakhtar Donetsk are 2-1 behind against Lech Poznan, but Shakhtar Donetsk are still leading 4-3 on aggregate. AZ Alkmaar still have 4-0 against Sparta Praha. They lead 6-1 on aggregate, while Strasbourg and Rijeka is 1-1, so it is 3-2 on aggregate for Strasbourg in that game. Maybe I should look at that Bologna versus AC Roma game. It's an Italian Serie A derby at this stage of the competition, so must be really an entertaining game. AC Roma under the charges of Piero Gasperini, who guided Atlanta to the triumph of the same competition back in 2024 when they beat Bayer Leverkusen 3-0 in the finals. Then Unai Emery, I think, remains the most successful manager in the competition. He won it on 3 consecutive occasions: 2016, 2017, and 2018. No, was that the time? Oh, it was 2014, 15, and 16. Yes, 2014, 15, and 16. I think that's the period. And then also in 2021 with Villarreal before he made the switch to Aston Villa in the subsequent season. So, yeah, so he did that with Sevilla, really, when you go back in time. Okay, let's see if we can find those UEFA Europa League winners. When we go back to Sevilla, the most successful team, have won it 7 times, Inter Milan 3 times, Tottenham Hotspur 3 times, but Liverpool 3 times, but that is back in 90 days. But anyways, you look at, yes, Sevilla 2014, 15, and 16. That's when they were under the charges of, Unai Emery. Then they came back and won it in 2020, by the way, beat Inter Milan 3-2 in the final. They also won it in 2023. They beat Roma, Jose Mourinho's AC Roma, I think, in 2023. Then Atlanta and Spurs are the last teams to win it. Then Frankfurt in 2022, that Frankfurt team that was under the charges of Oliver Glasner, they beat Roma. So Chelsea in 2013 and in 2019, they beat Arsenal. It was an all-English final. Atletico de Madrid in 2018, they eliminated Arsenal in the semi-finals. Atletico de Madrid in 2012, I think, let me see, and 2010. In 2010, they beat Fulham. I don't remember who was their manager then, but Fulham were under the charges of Roy Hodgson. Then I think by 2011, in Stuart Bucharest, isn't that after had Diego Simeone joined? Because that Bilbao side was under the charges of Marcelo Bielsa at the time, because they knocked out Manchester United in the run into the finals of that season, So I really, really have to check for the 2012 Europa League final. Let me check there so that I have my memory refreshed there. I need to find out from UEFA. I think Randamel Falcao was among the goal scorers in that final. I think he scored 2. Randamel Falcao Garcia Zarate. Oh, yeah, he scored 2. And Diego who? Was it Diego Forlan? Diego Forlan scored the one in 2010. Yeah, Diego Simeone was at the club. So he's won them 2 Europa League titles, taken them to 2 finals of the UEFA Champions League in 2014 and 2016. Of course, they've not won it still. But yeah, that final was quite electric for Randamel Falcao Garcia Zarate. That was at him at his peak. Really, he's really a decent guy. That team that had Thibaut Courtois in goal, it had Godin, Miranda, Luis Felipe, Juan Fran, Malo Suarez, Gabi, Diego. And Rich, and was that Lopez, Ada Turan, Falcao? So then the side of Bilbao, oh, it's goal number 2 for Aston Villa through Leon Bailey. It's the goal scorer. But yeah, Bilbao had players like Xavi Martinez. This one went on to play for Bayern Munich. They had players like Iraola was the captain in that team. They had Federico Di Marco, Ander Herrera. They had players like Ika Munain, Susueta, Fernando Llorente, the likes of Ibai Gomez were in that squad. You know, oh, could this be offside? It could be chopped for offside. Leon Bailey will hold his breath. Inigo Perez was among those players in that squad. So there's another player that I'm looking for that was in that team. Ada Turan, that the goal stands for Aston Villa. Ada Turan was in that team. Koke was in that team before he joined Atletico de Madrid. But yeah, that was the team. So beautiful, beautiful stuff. So that's the sort of history with those two clubs. Anyways, guys, allow me wrap it up here. I think I'll bring you up to speed with the results from these games tonight. They're coming to the tail end. Meanwhile, Roma have found the equalizer against Bologna. So that game is 4-4 as we speak on aggregate score. That means it could be destined for extra time. If it ends that way in regular time. But thank you so much, SD and Daniel Tuton, for having been part of this broadcast. I think the goal is by the captain, Manel Pellegrini. They do have Daniel Malin from Aston Villa. Gian Piero Gasperini just been cautioned by the referee. Very animated gentleman. One of those managers that I do respect, by the way. I'd want to see him at a much bigger club. Not that Roma, not a big club, but I mean to say a club with perhaps that is more resourceful, you know. But Bologna won't go down without a fight, and nor would AC Roma. So it's 3-3 at the moment and 4-3 on aggregate. But anyways, guys, allow me to wrap it up here and wish you a blessed night. Let's link up again tomorrow morning for an extended conversation on the Europa League and also the preview for what's to come in the weekend. Stay blessed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye for now.